You know you like my moves. Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man. So you guys know that we have the Superbet Blitz and Rapid going on right now. And so I have a really exciting game for you right now between Wesley and Viswanathan Anand. So as always, for my people that are coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. It is late at night there. 11:45 p.m. I believe. So a lot of people I think are asleep. So I'll say magandang umaga to you. Good morning. I appreciate you guys very much. Kamusta na aking makaibigan. Hello ulit. I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from India, more specifically Southern India around the Chennai area, I would say Vanakkam to you. Nandri for coming by and taking a look at my video real quick. I really appreciate it very much. But this is a nice game. I mean, it has Wesley the current U.S. champion, versus Viswanathan Anand, former world champion. So a pretty big matchup here. So if you guys are ready to go, we're going to take a look and see what we have for this game. Bam. So we do have D4. We got knight to F6. We got C4, E6. And I mean, there are a couple different ways you could play. You know, most often you'll see either knight to F3 or knight coming to C3. You might even just see the E3 kind of delaying, you know, the knight movements, trying to see kind of what black does, because knight to C3 does invite bishop to B4, the Nimzo Indian. Knight to F3 doesn't really invite anything, but I mean, it allows bishop to B4. I mean, maybe some D5s. So, I mean, just kind of depends on how you want to play. So, Wesley says, hey, man, I'll take a Nimzo if you want to give it to me. And that's exactly what Viswanathan Anand does. Bishop to B4. And we do have the Nimzo Indian defense. We got simply E3. You know, we're not worried about captures here because this is going to bring an extra pawn into the center. And we are going to be able to get rid of the double pawns fairly easily. So we do have castles by black. Bishop comes to D3. We see D5. So as you can see, I mean, we kind of have a like similar structure to what I mentioned before. You know, this is the typical like Queen's Gambit decline type structures. It's almost always going to be the case that's going to come. So we do see pawn taking D5, pawn taking D5. We got A3. Bishop comes back to D6. The bishop, you know, so Anand just said he doesn't want to give the bishop up for the knight, which makes sense because this is a somewhat open position. So the bishop pair might benefit him a little bit more. So we do see queen over to C2. We got C6, just solidifying our pawn structure. Knight G to E2. As I always say, you got to make sure you say which knight comes because both of these knights have the ability to go to this same square. So either knight C to E2, knight G to E2. We do see knight B to D7, so same thing. Bishop comes to D2. We got rook to E8. We see F3. And even though this is a very common idea, just to protect the H7 pawn and make this knight, you know, give this knight the ability to move, this is a very common maneuver. Sometimes, you know, you bring this knight back here to bring it up to E6. We do see knight to F8, and this is the novelty of the game. So we do see long castles by Wesley. So we got B5. I mean, we have opposite castles, you know. So as you guys are probably aware, or who should become aware, whenever you do castle on opposite sides of the board, you are going to be seeing, you know, attacks with pawns on opposite sides. So F3, you know, basically G4, H4 should be coming for white. And then B5, A5, you know, maybe pushing to B4 should be coming for black. So that is what we see Anand start to do. We got B5. We see E4. We do have B4. Pawn takes B4. We got bishop taking B4. Something else that was actually very nice in the position is actually just capturing here. Just resolving the tension that you have in the center immediately. You know, pawn takes. And then we have knight taking. And then we have a bunch of trades and stuff like that. But like I said, we did see bishop taking B4. We see E5. So this is a very desirable move to get in. It does displace this knight. And this kind of is the whole reason that Anand did make this knight maneuver here, because maybe E5 is possible. You know, overprotecting isn't normally a bad thing, and that's what Anand did. So now when the knight does come over, knight 6 goes to D7. We do have this pawn protected because, as you guys can see, we do have the bishop and the queen trained on that square. So the knight does come to a4. And this is actually a situation where the knight is pretty grim on the rim. It doesn't have, like, you know, the greatest prospects here. Of course, it's not going to go here. Coming to c5 at this moment is going to be a little bit bad. I mean, you're very heavily protected here. So the rook does come over to b8. Since this file is half open, this is a very, very nice move because, like I said, I mean, we're attacking on opposite sides of the board. So this, you know, maximizing your rook over here against this king is very beneficial. So the queen does take c6, and you have to be really, really careful with this because, you know, your king and queen are on the same line. So even though black doesn't have really the ability to, you know, exploit that at the moment, it can become dangerous in the future, and this queen can definitely be subject to, you know, tempo or tempi gains, which is something we're actually going to see. The bishop does take on d2 with check. We see rook taking d2. The bishop comes to b7, and this starts the tempi gaining moves for black. So we do see queen over to d6. We got rook to e6, so now we're hitting the queen again. The queen comes down to a3. We see bishop to a6, offering a trade, but then also just making sure that we maintain the opening of this rook. And, you know, the queen can come over, something like this. Rook can come over as well. So starting to look kind of dangerous for white. But, I mean, it's pretty even right now. We do see bishop back to c2. We have bishop taking e2, rook taking e2, and then we do have rook to a6. And this queen is not happy. It is just behind this rook. The queen definitely has the ability to come over here to a5. So, you know, if we look at the position compared to white and black, you know, white hasn't really started the attack that I mentioned before. They basically just been defending the position against black. You know, black is getting a lot of solid moves in. You know, this rook is on this half open file. This rook is on this half open file. This queen is about to come into the game. And so you see that white is in a very, very defensive mode right now. So they are definitely not in a position to attack. We see queen over to d3. We see queen down to a5. So like I said, I mean, all of black's pieces are pretty much working. This rook isn't really working too much in the corner over here for white. So, you know, white definitely has like a couple moves that they need to put in so that they can get rolling. So we do see e6. It's kind of like, it kind of sucks having to make this move. This is one of the few freeing moves that you actually had in the position. You know, going back, b3 was definitely a possibility. Just trying to hold this knight and just give you a little bit more free movement for white. But, you know, there isn't really a lot that white has in the position, you know, because black is very, very solid. So like I said, we do have e6, pawn takes e6. We have the rook h coming to e1. So now we have gotten that rook into the game. But, I mean, it's not biting on the best, you know, pawn because it is actually a double defended. Well, technically not double defended because you don't want to move this knight because you're going to be looking at queen takes h7 with check. But you guys see what I mean. There isn't a whole lot of prospects of taking this pawn for the moment. Rook comes over to c6. We do have a direct threat on this knight now because now this bishop is pinned to the king. So the knight comes back to c3. We see queen down to a1 with check. The king goes up to d2. Queen takes b2. And we are now up a pawn for black. I mean, like I said, black just pretty much has all their pieces working. I mean, this queen is like right next to the king. This rook is doing a good job of holding some pieces down. This rook is, you know, backing the queen up. We just kind of have to try to, you know, get something rolling with these knights. But we do see rook over to b1, giving a counterattack on the queen. But the queen can just safely move to a3, and we're good. The rook takes b8, knight takes b8, and then we do have the move f4. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not really sure what f4 is supposed to be doing. I mean, because this pawn really isn't moving. So f4 just kind of seems like, I mean, maybe he was having some ideas and maybe swinging the queen over or something like that. But, I mean, right now, this knight is really, really heavily hit. So, like I said, I'm not really 100% sure what f4 is doing in the position. But we have reached a point in the game. Let me just adjust this real quick. We have reached a point in the game that if you do want to pause the video and see what killer move Anand plays in this position, go ahead and do so. Okay, so I said earlier that knight to a4 was putting the knight on the rim, and it was grim, but there are situations where you can put a knight on the rim, and you only are putting it there to redirect it to a better square. So that is exactly what Viswanathan Anand does in this position, and he goes knight to a6. Knight to a6 is absolutely the best move in the position. As you guys can see, like, the bar is really nice for black. You know, basically you are looking at moving knight to b4, and you are going to be disrupting this queen and this bishop. You know, if you can try to do something to knock this queen away, this knight is very, very juicy. So that is unfortunate. It is actually in this position that Wesley So does resign the game. Just to give you guys like a possible scenario, the best possible move in the position that literally gives you any type of a chance is actually knight to a4. You know, basically just repositioning your queen as black, going back to d6. So this was like basically the strongest that white can try to do. I mean, it's a pretty miserable position. So it's not a situation where, I mean, you really want to do anything. You really want to kind of just like, you know, pass the move back to black and say, I don't want to go. But, you know, of course you can't do that. And in this position here, I mean, white is just way too overloaded. They're trying to make sure they hold down this bishop because this bishop is holding down the knight. They want to try to hold on to this pawn. You know, I mean, they can play g6 at some point, and this knight is completely free to move, you know, to kind of go anywhere. You know, like I said, knight to b4 is still very much an option. So the queen really can't maintain this square. It's just the position is just completely falling apart for white, and there really isn't much that you can do. Even a computer would have a problem trying to play this position. So like I said, back when we got to this position after knight to a6, Wesley thought for a minute and then went ahead and just said, hey, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and resign. And I mean, it might seem a little premature, but I mean, there really isn't much to do that's left in the position. Like I said, any other move, you know, it actually gives, as the second best move, it actually gives knight takes d5 as an option. And you know, after the queen takes, you're looking at bishop takes, and then the pawn is going to be taking. You're just down a whole piece. But like I said, this is the second best option that white actually has in a position. So it's just not something you can do anything about. So I appreciate you guys very much for coming by. Maraming salamat aking makaibigan maging dakila. And I will say nanduri to my people that are coming from southern India. Vana come to you. Appreciate you guys very much, and I'll see y'all next time.